Westminster is the Conservative MP for Montgomeryshire, Glyn Davis, who's also a Parliamentary Private Secretary at the Wales office, and Labour MP for Aberavon, Stephen Kinnock, a member of the Commons exiting the EU committee. Morning, both of you. And let's start with it. Let's start with that very point, Glyn Davis. Clearly, this is at best a mess, at worst a crisis. Where would you put it? How serious is this?
Well, I have to admit, to me, it's a little bit like living in a parallel universe. I mean, I spent quite a lot of time seeing the Prime Minister being questioned by her own party and meeting her own, but I've never seen her so confident, and I've never seen the Conservative Party so supportive of a Prime Minister. So for me, clearly there had to be there were going to be disagreements as the government settled on its approach to the European Union. Two members and one or two others, parliamentary secretaries, they felt they disagreed too much, and they stepped aside. And but I think the government is unified. It's going forward, and I think it's probably in a stronger position than it's been for the last 2 years.
I suspect you see things quite differently, Stephen Kinnock.
Yes, I mean it's been sort of going from chaos to shambles, and now in meltdown. Theresa May has lost 7 cabinet ministers, I think, since November. That's one every 6 weeks, going back from Michael Fallon through to Boris Johnson. So it's a rolling crisis. She's in office but not in power. Straight after that meeting of the 1922 committee, I understand 80 members of the European Research Group met. They're still ideologically driven for a hard Brexit. None of them are backing the Chequers proposal. She's appointed a Brexit secretary, Dominic Raab, who is one of the hardest of the hard Brexiteers. So I can't see how he's going to go into bat for the Chequers proposal, which I'm sure he disagrees with pretty much every word of it. So there is a real sense of crisis. However, I do think that the Chequers proposal was a step in the right direction, because at least the Prime Minister was accepting that our future lies with Europe. This nonsense about trade deals with Donald Trump that were going to compensate for severing our links with the single market and the customs union, that's finally been put to bed. That idea of us all eating chlorinated chicken for the rest of our days is now being put to bed, which is a very good thing. We can now, I think, on the basis of the Chequers proposal, start to have a more sensible discussion, which I hope will end up with us committing to go into the European Economic Area as the best possible and most viable option for Brexit.
You wanted to leave. Are you getting what you wanted, Glyn Davis? Or can you at least understand?
Well,
can you at least understand why others are uncomfortable with the Chequers agreement?
Well, I think this is probably the biggest decision that the United Kingdom will have faced, certainly in my political lifetime, and indeed perhaps in my lifetime. It's not surprising there are different views. It was always going to be difficult. I did vote to leave, and I remember telling my friends at the time it was an incredibly difficult decision to take, and I thought it would be very, very difficult for us to carry this decision out, and that's exactly the way it's turned out. I'm relieved, reassured to hear Stephen. It's clear that Stephen thinks that the position that Theresa May is adopting, and the party is now, I think, fully supportive of, apart from a certain number who don't, and that's probably that's across all parties. I think there'll be a lot of cross-party support for the position she's taken. It's taken a fair bit of coverage, but I just return to the sheer confidence that she demonstrated yesterday, and the support in the 22 was. There may have been a meeting of another group afterwards. There were about 250 in the 22 meeting, and it was an amazing demonstration of support for the Prime Minister, and a response from her of complete confidence. I mean, she looked like a real leader. She's had to face a difficult challenge, and she's come through it.
Are you comfortable with Chequers, though? Is this the kind of Brexit you had in mind, with observing EU regulations and continuing to observe case law of the ECJ?
Well, what you'll have, and this will continue forever, this idea that we have a negotiation, we come to a final position, and that's it forever. It just isn't the way it is. I mean, look at Wales bills. As soon as you settle in one, you have to consider the next step.
Let me ask you the question again. Are you comfortable with the Chequers agreement? You are you?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Because it's pragmatic, or
yes,
you've had to put some principles aside?
I think if every politician in the country wrote exactly what they wanted, they'd probably all be different. So, but what you find in the end is an agreement that's seeking to go forward, and agreement that has a potential to come to a negotiated position with the European Union. We're desperate. I mean, I want to leave the European Union, but I'm desperate to have a good, solid working relationship with our partners after we leave. And I think, generally speaking, that's the position of most people in Britain.
So Boris Johnson, I'm using an ill-advised word of, to describe it, and I know that that's something that I probably shouldn't repeat with some of the response to him describing us as a colony. I mean, it's the worst of both worlds.
Boris is colourful. Boris has always used colourful language. He has a view. I don't disrespect somebody who disagrees and decides they can't serve in government. I mean, this is the way it's been through history. What we now have a group of people. I mean, Jeremy Hunt's been making sensible comments directed at the Leave side. I mean, Dominic Raab has looked at the policy and he's come in. I just honestly think it's like for me living in a parallel universe this morning, reading the newspapers and seeing the reality of the position in the government, which I think is as positive as it's been for a long time.
Maybe Theresa May's greatest blessing, Stephen Kinnock, is that on the Labour benches you're quite happy, aren't you, for them to carry on with this and to see what sort of mess that they make. The last thing Labour wants at this point is to have to pick up these negotiations, isn't it?
Well, I think the Chequers proposal, as I said, was a step in the right direction, but it's still completely off beam in terms of what we actually need, which is the clarity and stability and certainty of the European Economic Area Agreement that's existed since 1993. It's the only way that we can give business and communities up and down the country the certainty and the stability they so desperately need. I mean, she's come up with this bureaucratic nightmare, a fudge of all sorts of different unworkable solutions that nobody actually understands.
Well, what do you do then? How would you keep everyone happy in the Labour Party then? Because I'm not sure that anyone fully understands that.
Well, I've been pushing for almost 2 years now for us to sign up to the European Economic Area.
Well, that wouldn't keep everyone happy, would it? I mean, that would create as much of a storm as this Chequers agreement has, if possibly even more so.
Well, politics, and one thing I agreed with Glyn on, politics isn't about keeping absolutely everybody happy. It's about leadership and building a consensus and delivering for the country and putting your country before your party. Unfortunately,
isn't that what Theresa May has done?
Well, no, because why on earth has it taken us 2 years to get where we are now? That she spent her entire time internal management of the Conservative Party ahead of the national interest. And I'm afraid that was the same story with David Cameron. We have now this line of Conservative leaders who put the psychodrama of the Conservative Party about Europe ahead of the national interest.
But watching proceedings in the Commons yesterday, as Theresa May kept underlining that she felt that what happened at Chequers was the best deal for the country, and the fact that she has been prepared to risk losing David Davis and Boris Johnson over this, which is indeed what happened, and who knows who else may follow. Doesn't that tell you that's exactly what she's done? Is she's put the country before her party on this?
Credit where credit's due. She's taken a step in the right direction with Chequers, and she has faced down the hard, ideologically driven Brexiteers in her party. And I'm saying absolutely credit where credit's due. But the devil is in the detail, and the proposal she's putting forward is still an attempt and she's still trying to sell a soft Brexit as a hard Brexit. She's still trying to face both ways and play the game of internal party management. She should just move forward now. She should have put an all-out Remainer in the position to replace David Davis. Instead, she's now got somebody who's supposed to be going into bat for Britain, bat for the national interest on the basis of the Chequers proposal, which I think is deeply flawed.
Well, yeah.
She's got a guy there who believes that we should make a bonfire of workers' rights, who believes that leaving the EU is actually an opportunity to turn our country into a European version of the Cayman Islands.
But she's got a Remainer in the Foreign Office now, hasn't she? So that's there's a bit of balance there. And for
the
you,
Brexit job is the key job.
Well, is it though? Because that's all been run from number 10 now, as we understand it. But just finally to you, Glyn Davis, just on, you don't foresee any sort of challenge to Theresa May, then, do you?
No, I don't. I don't see any. Predicting in politics is a mug's game, and always has been. All I can tell you is the position as I'm sitting in front of your microphone now, and having been here yesterday, we've had a fairly tumultuous discussions at Chequers and follow-up, and we had a Prime Minister yesterday that looked absolutely on top of her game to me. I was quite taken aback, and I was taken aback also by the sheer support of the vast bulk of the Conservative Party at the 22. It was extraordinary. It wasn't something that I expected, and it bodes well for the future. And I just do think that there'll be members of Stephen's party who will say, "Wait a minute, this is moving." I mean, you're rather grudging. I think, Stephen, you were rather grudging in which moving in the right direction. I think it was a very dramatic move, and it's established the government's position. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think that's the way to go.
OK, thank you both very much. Thank you. Glyn Davis, Conservative MP for Montgomeryshire, Stephen Kinnock, the Labour MP for Aberavon. It's 19 minutes.